Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 8 a.m., so we're going to kick off today's session. I am Adriana Burke with Tetra Tech. I'm going to kick it over to Ellen in just a second, but I did want to remind everyone that when you enter meetings, please put yourself on mute. And as a reminder, when you come and go between the meetings, please hit the leave button, go back to the agenda, and use the title of that link to enter and exit the various meeting rooms. Try not to have multiple meeting rooms open, so just be in at one at a time. And then as a reminder, we're going to be sending you the link to the evaluation form later today, and we'll also send it to you from yesterday, just in case you didn't get a chance. We'd love to have your feedback. How did everything go? Because we are now planning that session in June. And of course, if you have any questions, you can send us an email or put something in the chat, or raise your hand and one of the Tetra Tech moderators will call on you so that we can make sure that everything is running smoothly for you. And with that, I will turn it over to Ellen from the Environmental Finance Center.
Great, thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. I am gonna launch into part 2 of financing stormwater management. For those of you that weren't here yesterday with us, my name is Ellen Kohler. I am the Program Director of Water Resources at the University of Maryland's Environmental Finance Center. We serve communities in EPA's Region 3, including Pennsylvania, and I have been working with communities in Pennsylvania on MS4 permitting for the last 7 years. So to get us started, I'm going to go through a couple of slides that I used yesterday just to orient folks who might not have been with us. When we work with communities putting together their financing strategy for their stormwater program, we think about how we link these 3 different elements of the strategy: activities and partners and revenue streams. And it's about matching those things for a specific community. The match will look different in each community. And you also want to make sure that your financing strategy addresses your whole system, both your gray and your green infrastructure that you might be putting in to manage stormwater. So there are a variety of different activities, a variety of partners that you could be working with, and different revenue streams that you could be using. This is just a pretty straightforward a chart of common sources of funding for stormwater programs. In the pollution reduction plans that I've reviewed in Pennsylvania, most of the communities say that they're going to use general funds and grants. I want to note that there are other sources, obviously, and that Brian Johnson from Penvest yesterday made the point that you don't have to have a stormwater fee in order to access loan funding through Penvest, which is Pennsylvania's State Revolving Fund program. So that's what this SRF means over here, State Revolving Fund. So just keep that in mind, that you don't have to have a fee if you are interested in accessing their resources. I also just want to note that I'm not going to go through the whole chart, but as we talked about yesterday, different kinds of funding can be used to cover different kinds of activities in terms of capital versus operations and maintenance. So you do need to keep that in mind as you're putting together your financing strategy or thinking about how you're going to fund what you need to do. So yesterday we talked a little bit about budgeting and things to keep in mind in terms of budgeting, particularly not forgetting to include operations and maintenance. Today, I want to focus a little bit more on what kinds of BMPs you're going to select, and or you've selected. And one thing a lot of communities have thought about is whether to locate those BMPs on municipal lands or on private lands. Again, most of the PRPs that I've looked at, the focus has been on municipal lands, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because you don't have to worry about acquisition costs, and you have more control over that stormwater facility, particularly for operations and maintenance. But depending on your pollutant reduction requirements, you may not be able to address all of the stormwater management needs that you have on municipal lands. So you may have to look at private lands. And so there are a couple of different ways to think about that. One is to review your regulations to make sure that your municipality is not incentivizing more impervious cover on private land. And if you are, that you are making sure that that private landowner is creating the stormwater facility and responsible for maintaining that stormwater facility, appropriately on that private land. One way to look at your ordinances to see where you're incentivizing impervious cover is to use the Center for Watershed Protection's Code and Ordinance Worksheet. It's a great tool. You guys will get these slides later, so you'll be able to link to that tool. And that will help you figure out, where you might want to make some adjustments in your ordinance. I do want to emphasize that if you are shifting those costs and that risk to your private landowners, you do want to make sure that you have mechanisms set up so that you can ensure their compliance. So you might require escrow accounts for future operations and maintenance for those stormwater facilities. You want to make sure you have capacity and staff to do regular inspections and to communicate with those landowners. Often, for example, with homeowners associations that may have an association BMP that they are managing. Another thing that you've all had to think about is whether you're going to build new best management practices or whether you're going to retrofit existing stormwater facilities. Many of you have communities that have stormwater facilities that may have been built years ago that really only address volume, and they could be retrofitted to also address water quality. And there are things to think about with both. New stormwater infrastructure, particularly green stormwater infrastructure, well, certainly gray infrastructure can have higher upfront costs. But that new infrastructure may be more responsive to your specific permit needs, and it may also be more responsive to your community priorities. Yesterday, I sat in on a session about a floodplain restoration project that was located where a community was going to be implementing a new park. So that was just wonderful, and that was obviously a new BMP that they were installing because it was new property that they acquired. But retrofitting can be very attractive. The upfront cost can be much, much lower to retrofit an existing stormwater basin, for example. The value in investing in that retrofit really depends on where the asset is in its life cycle. We talked a bit about this yesterday, in that if whether it's a gray asset or a green asset, if it's getting towards the end of its life cycle, it may not be your best investment to retrofit that particular, whether it's a stormwater pipe or a stormwater basin. And then land ownership may be an issue with retrofitting. If you don't have a good relationship with that landowner, it's on private land, you may not be able to implement, you may not be able to go in there and make changes to that stormwater facility, to that basin. When you think about retrofitting, don't limit yourself to only thinking about physical assets. Think about existing administrative assets as well, and administrative infrastructure. In Derry Township, this is an image of their wastewater treatment facility after some, as you can see, rather severe flooding in 2011. As a result of this flooding, the community decided that it was going to, along with the municipal authority, decided that it really needed to pay attention to this challenge, and that maybe it would be a good idea to ask the municipal authority, which at that point was only managing wastewater, was to use that same municipal authority to also address stormwater. So their mission became providing a cost-effective public service to protect and enhance the water environment and quality of life for the local and regional community. Because their wastewater service area and their stormwater service area were similar, this made a lot of sense. The authority then conducted an assessment of its stormwater assets and found that it needed about $11 million of repairs for those assets and $15 million in green stormwater infrastructure to address its stormwater management and flooding. But here they used an authority that already had the administrative structure in place to be able to bill, frankly, the community. So they also adopted a stormwater fee. They also had in place the capacity to do an assessment and to understand the gray infrastructure that they had. And then they learned about how to use the green infrastructure to augment their gray stormwater system. So think creatively about the infrastructure that you have and what you can retrofit to use to your advantage. Most of you are managing roads. And so this is a place where you could be thinking about how to use the activities that you're conducting around your road infrastructure as a way to meet your MS4 obligations as well. You already have some money coming into your municipality to manage roads, so you could be leveraging that revenue to access additional resources to be able to implement, say, some roadside stormwater management. There can be some significant efficiencies to be gained in doing the planning, the design, and the permitting, both for whatever road work you're going to do, and then also at the same time doing that stormwater management. You want to be getting the water off the roads anyway to create a safe driving surface. When you're going to manage that water, if you do it in a way that also addresses water quality, it's a win-win. So you want to think about who's responsible for which roads in your municipality. What are the funding sources available to manage that road runoff? You've got some revenues yourself, but are there others that you can access? Is there a partnership program that you could be working with? I know that there are some regional transportation groups throughout Pennsylvania. Maybe there are some ways to leverage those networks in order to learn more about what you can do with your roads, and maybe municipalities that are adjacent to you that you can work with together. Maybe you want to start a partnership with some neighboring municipalities to create some efficiencies around your managing stormwater off your roads. This ties into what we call a Dig Once strategy, which is where you look at where you're going to invest in your community and think, okay, what's everything that we're going to do here, and let's make sure we do our stormwater infrastructure at the same time so that we are being efficient with that planning, design, and permitting, the resources that you're spending on that. And there was a study done in Lancaster showing that taking this kind of approach, for them at least, reduced their costs by 45%. They were 45% lower when they used the projects were installed within the context of their capital improvement planning process. Here's an example. Westchester Borough has done this. They also leverage a variety of different resources in order to fund their stormwater projects. So when something's happening on a road, there was some utility work done here. They went ahead and planned this stormwater feature. And then on the other side of the road, this picture is not very good, but had on the other side of the road another bump out that had a bunch of vegetation, and then here's the overflow structure. They leveraged different kinds of resources. This is also called stacking from the Dirt and Gravel Road and Low Volume Road program. Their liquid fuels tax dollars, they use some of the repaving reimbursements from the utility and what they call their stream protection fee to pay for implementing these BMPs. Another way to think about how you can leverage the resources you have is to have a shared staff person that is serving a bunch of municipalities. They've done this on the Eastern Shore. They have someone who helps identify a set of BMPs that are going to be implemented across these 6 municipalities. Say they're going to do a bunch of riparian buffers and they wanted to find trees to plant that were going to be more in an efficient way. In addition, they were going to get a lower cost because they were all joining together. And so this is a way to get some capacity in for less money than your municipality might have to spend if they were hiring one person. And so these communities collaborated to hire this person, and they're housed at the Chesapeake Bay Foundation office, a nonprofit that they partner with. So again, this ties into thinking about who you're engaging with as partners. Be creative about who you might partner with. conservation districts have a lot of programs that you can be working with. We've got county planning commissions that have been supporting stormwater collaborations in many places in Pennsylvania. Your economic development councils have some funding potentially that could be helpful. Watershed organizations are fantastic partners, as are land conservancies, because of their interest in open space lands where you might be able to implement some BMPs or protect riparian buffers. And then there are schools, colleges, and universities who also have capacity and expertise that they can help you with. And just a quick reference to a couple of educational resources for you. We host the MOST Center, which is the Municipal Online Stormwater Training Center, where you can access a bunch of courses on demand. And of course, there's Pennsylvania Extension has wonderful resources on stormwater management that you can access online as well. So that's it for part 2. I think now there are some sessions that you can go into, and I will be talking about grants in my session. Thank you.